I'd like to call the City of Wheat Ridge Planning Commission for August 3rd, 2017 to order. Can I get a roll call for members, please?
Dirk Bowden.
Here.
Alan Bucknam.
Present.
Emery Dorsey. Here. Janet Leo. Here. Scott Ohm.
Here.
Amanda Weaver. Vivian Voss.
Present.
And Donna Kimsey is absent tonight.
The next order on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Motion passed 7-0.
Is there a motion to approve the order of minutes for June 15, 2017?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Motion passed 6-0 with one abstaining.
This is the time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone signed up to speak? No? Okay, we will close that portion of the public forum. I would like to open the public hearing for case number WZ-17-05, an application filed by Shadow Homes Incorporated for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Residential 1C for property located at 6025 West 40th Avenue, and ask for the staff report.
Alrighty. Good evening. For the record, Zach Wallace-Mendez, planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. Tonight I will be presenting case number WZ-1705, a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Residential C on property located at 6025 West 40th Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear the case.
So noted.
The subject property is outlined here in red, located just west of Harlan Street along 40th Avenue. It's about 14,000 square feet in size, and the width of the frontage along 40th Avenue, just for reference, is about 105 feet. This is the same aerial image with the zoning overlaid on top of it. The current zoning on the property is Commercial 1, and it is largely surrounded by a variety of residential uses, though the zoning is a bit more mixed than that. To the north along Harlan is largely Commercial 1, C1. To the south and east is R3, consisting of single-family duplex multifamily properties. There's R2 to the north and west with single-family and duplex development scattered throughout. And the property immediately to the east is also zoned R1C, which is the proposed zoning district for the subject property. I'd like to mention at this point in the presentation that the primary structure on the property is a residence and was originally built in 1942 and has served as a residential structure for as far back as city records go. As mentioned, many of the other properties in the area are zoned commercially but utilized residentially, especially along that Harlan strip. These properties were primarily built between two time periods, the first cluster between 1890 and about 1910, and the second cluster in the early 1950s. Both of these time periods were before the City of Wheat Ridge Incorporated, and then one of those time periods, the 1890s one, was before zoning even existed. Jeffco didn't adopt zoning until 1941. So that might explain a little bit of the mismatch between the zoning and the actual use of these structures. And then also in the area, there's actually the reverse. There's a commercial property on Harlan and 41st that is zoned residentially. It's the garden center there. So this mismatch in zoning is kind of expansive in this area and unique in Wheat Ridge, to say the least. It happens occasionally, but not to this kind of expanse. So I just wanted to kind of describe what was going on in this side of town over here. And then just a quick closer look at the subject property, showing the single-family house right here, and then a detached garage and a shed, and then some open space to the northwest. Just a few quick photos of the property, basically exactly what we just saw, but from the ground level, the house, the shed is behind this wall here, and the detached garage. This is a view of the property looking northwest. The subject property extends from the brown fence on the right to the white fence on the left. And just a view looking now northeast from the other side of the property on the largely open space vacant area of the property. And then just a quick view looking up Harlan. There's the apartment complex that's zoned commercially that's been there since the 60s. And then in the rear you can see the commercial or the residential structure on commercial zoned property that's been there since about 1891. So we'll quickly describe the difference between the zone districts that are proposed and existing. The current commercial zoning allows for just a wide range of commercial uses, anything from auto service to grocery stores, just the wide array of commercial activities. It does not allow for new residential development unless that residential use is ancillary to a much larger commercial use of the property. Think like a sleeping quarters for someone who owns like a self-storage facility. You know, usually they have someone who lives on site. That would be allowed under the commercial zoning, but not a new primary residence. Existing residences can stay, as this one has for many years. The R1C zone district, however, is a single-family zone district, which allows largely just single-family homes. As we've heard on previous cases, there are a few other uses that are allowed in the R1C zone district, such as like group homes or schools. However, these require special use permits or large amounts of land, up to like an acre in size, which are largely, or not largely, they are impossible for this site. Quickly, some development standards for the proposed and existing zone districts, very different because one is a commercial zone and one is a residential zone. So the key differences, building height. In the current zone district, you can go up to 50 feet. In the proposed zone district, there would be a 35-foot maximum plus the bulk plane regulations that were adopted last year. Lot coverage is much smaller, more open space is required, and a lot more landscaping, 100% of the front yard, 25% of the gross lot area, as compared to just 20% of a commercial property. There was a neighborhood meeting held on May 30th. 6 neighbors were in attendance. They did raise some concerns about setbacks and density. There was actually some confusion there was some confusion about what would be allowed on the property. They were concerned about like the slot home type development that was happening in like West Denver, where there's like 14 homes kind of parallel on a lot or perpendicular to the street frontage on a lot. And once we kind of described that this would only allow for a maximum of 2 single-family homes, and that would only be after rezoning and subdivision, kind of calmed any nerves that there were, and folks generally seemed accepting of the proposal and welcomed the new residential development. There were also no concerns or comments from utility agencies or other departments during the referral period. Quickly, I'll go over the comprehensive plan. That's one of the several criteria that we use to evaluate zone changes. The star indicates a subject property, which is in a established neighborhood designation. This encourages established neighborhoods, stable neighborhoods, reinvestment in neighborhoods, which staff feels that this proposal does coincide with. So quickly, I'll summarize our key findings. There's a full list in your staff report, but staff does recommend support or approval of this request, We find that the R1C will allow for a lower intensity residential use similar to the existing surrounding environment. Staff believes that the zone change will not have an adverse impact on the public welfare. It is supported by the comprehensive plan. And for these reasons, staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowden? Commissioner Bucknam? Commissioner Dorsey?
The developer, are they going to utilize the existing house on the property, or are they going to tear that down?
I believe their plan is to utilize the existing home. The applicant is here tonight and would be happy to speak
Okay.
once we're done with the staff.
Because I did notice in driving by, it seemed like the lot is fairly wide, but with the garage set away from that house so far, you don't have much width on the lot that needs to be developed. And that was why I'm asking that question.
Not at this point.
Not-
We'll circle and we'll come back to having the applicant come up. Do you have any other questions, Commissioner Dorsey? Okay. Commissioner Voss?
I do have some questions. I'm curious about the 105 feet total width of the minimum landscape, that has to cover that 100% width. How deep does that go?
That would be 100% of the front setback, which in this zone district is 25 feet, 20 feet. So the first 20 feet of the property would need to be 100% landscaped. That's what we consider the front yard.
Of any vegetation? Are there requirements for plants or trees or hedges or?
There is a requirement for street trees, one every 70 feet. The rest just needs to be landscaped. And I think we go into too specific of detail in the
Okay.
Yeah, the intent of the regulation is really just to make sure that people have
Parking.
improved front yards. It's either driveway or it's landscape, but it's not just like open dirt.
And maybe the applicant can speak to that. Where's the single-family boundary of that property? Will it be
the
two
proposed.
separate ownerships?
Oh, so yes. So if this zone change is approved, I believe the applicant intends to submit for a two-lot subdivision. I believe their intent was to subdivide it about halfway across the property.
Well, that comes later.
Yes, yep. And they have not applied for that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Leo? Okay, Commissioner Weaver?
Sorry, the subdivision is administrative, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically where we'll be discussing the zone change, and then the subdivision will be, no, we won't need to revisit that.
Correct.
Thanks. That's all.
Okay. I just had a couple questions. One was, let's go back to that Exhibit 4 of the comp plan. So what is I don't remember if you said, but what does the red color represent?
The red color, and Lauren might be able to help me out with this, is like a Main Street designation, perhaps? And I
Yeah.
think it's actually miscolored on our map here. I don't think Harlan is supposed to be the same designation as Wadsworth, but I could be incorrect.
He's correct, yeah. So those dashed lines are intended to mean corridors that are more commercial in nature.
Commercial, okay. And this is on the edge. And then, if you could go to back to Exhibit 3, the zoning map. Yeah, that one right there. So if you could, I understand that the use of the subject property and that I would say generally the use of the surrounding properties around that are very low in intensity. They appear to be mostly single-family residential, but the zoning to the south is R3. What would, if at some point somebody wanted to change, what would be the max amount of density that they could put on those Zone 3? And I guess where I'm kind of going is looking at that before you answer that question of the R3, which is much, much higher than the restricted 1C. And then you have R2. I guess my question is how did you come to putting a R1C amidst all the other higher intensity residential? So that's kind of my two-part question.
Sure. So there's a couple of reasons that R1C was the chosen zone district. First of all, it would allow them to keep the existing home and then also subdivide and create an additional single-family lot. The boundaries of the property, the size, and the width would allow for R1C compliant lots, 2 of them. Also, there's R1C present directly to the east of the subject property here. I think there's 2 lots here actually that are zoned R1C already.
But that's more the exception than the rule.
That
Is-
there's
is-
R1C in the area.
Yeah, I only see one R1C. It's almost all R3 on the south and east, apart from the commercial, and then it's all R2. There's only, I would assume that the R1C may have come, that the current R1C to the east may have, if I'm guessing history, may have come after the mass zoning for the other properties. Perhaps that was commercial at one point, and then that became R1C.
That's possible. Another reason for the R1C would be that the bulk plan regulations apply. So any redevelopment of this site would need to be mindful of the surrounding neighbors and not towering over them. Even if they chose a 3-story design, it would need to be scaled back significantly, as we talked about many times during that bulk plan regulations study. So that kind of, just there's single-family homes around there that we wanted to be mindful of, despite the R3 zoning to the south. I don't know if you can tell, but to the south right here, these are pretty small lots. They are not adequate size to redevelop into multifamily properties, nor are many of these. I've talked to actually some of the owners following the neighborhood meeting for this about what they might be able to do with their property, and it wasn't much. And you may ask, well, someone could come through and buy a whole bunch and do a multifamily development, but there's actually provision in the code that provides, or that prevents folks from essentially land
Assembling.
banking, to build multifamily development. So we think that even though this is zoned R3, there's a lot of single family, especially in the immediate surrounding area, even in the R2 area and the C1. And the R1C zoning is more, it's more in line with the existing conditions on the ground than the mismatch of zoning that has been overlaid on the area that has been existing since before the city and in some cases before zoning existed.
Okay. And then my last question is, there was a note somewhere in the packet that at one point the applicant was considering flag lot. What is the city's position on flag lots?
We do allow flag lots. A lot of times that gets complicated with the water and sewer service, in addition to fire providing access into the lot. And I think the applicant may also be able to speak to this a little bit more. They did not prefer the flag lot scenario. They did kind of think about it, plan a little bit for it, but ultimately decided on giving 2 parcels with larger backyards. They ended up going that route, essentially. And again, we haven't seen a subdivision plat yet, so they may still go the flag lot route, which is allowed under municipal code.
Okay.
I'll just add one more note. When we did revise the subdivision regulations, I know we spent a lot of time debating on the merits of that because we'd seen a long series of flag lots. So the exact code language is that flag lots are not encouraged, but are permitted when the most appropriate development option, use of a flag lot shall meet the following criteria. And then there's a series of criteria. So there's a little bit extra review for flag lots if we're going to go that route.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Okay. If the applicant would like to come forward, you can make a presentation if you'd so like. Please state your name and address for the record, and then we'll have the commissioners ask you some questions.
Katie Sorensen. I own Shadow Homes Incorporated, and we're the applicants for this this change. So my address is 5084 Gladiola Way, Golden, 80403. To answer a couple of your guys' questions, the garage, yes, is kind of far from the house that's existing there, but in our process of diligence before we came to this meeting, we had a survey done, and there is enough room to be within the setbacks on both lots when we plan to do the subdivision application. That also kind of brings up your question about the flag lot. That initially was one idea or consideration, but after we had the survey done, we knew that we could acceptably split it sort of in half and have the appropriate setbacks still. So mutually between us and the city, we agreed that a flag lot was unnecessary. To give you some history, Shadow Homes is a local residential redevelopment company. We do some projects where we buy, renovate, and sell houses, and we do some land development. Both my husband and I are born and raised in Arvada, and community is important to us, and we want to support growth and affordability and nice neighborhoods. So I think we're friends of the community in that way. Are there any other questions for me?
Yeah, let's start with Commissioner Bowden, Commissioner Buckton, Commissioner Dorsey. Okay. Commissioner Voss?
Yes, I'm curious, the existing house you will own and then you'll sell it as opposed to leaving it with the person that's in it now? Are they getting out?
So right now we are renting it to some lovely tenants, and their lease is through July. So after that point, we'll decide what we will do with it July next year. And we intend to leave that house there. We've already done some improvements on it, and we'll paint the outside and stuff in the next year. So it's a cute little house. It'll stay. And then after we split the lot in full, we're likely to sell that other lot to a developer that we know very well and does good work.
So you wouldn't even build the second new house on there?
Depends. Yeah, it depends. That's not set in stone yet, but our option is either to sell it or to keep it and build it. But regardless, our vision will carry through with that, and even if we sell it, it's going to be a single-family house that has to fit the setbacks of that lot. So whoever builds it is going to have to stay within those regulations. And then we'll own the other house, even no matter what we do it after the subdivision, we'll own the other house that's existing. And whether or not we keep that long-term or not, I don't know yet.
Thank
You're welcome.
Commissioner Leo? Commissioner Weaver? I don't have any more questions. Thank you. I would now like to open up the citizens forum. If there are any citizens signed up to speak, which there are none in the audience, so I will close the citizens forum. At this point, I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of case number WZ-17-05, a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Residential 1C for property located at 6025 West 40th Avenue for the following reasons. The proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Utility infrastructure adequately services the property. The proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and is consistent with the character of the surrounding area. The zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area, and the criteria used to evaluate a zone change supports this request.
There a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to note, in addition to making that motion, I think this is a good first step. That while I think it's specific to this, necessary in order for the applicant to do what they envision doing to this property, I'd like to encourage staff to maybe take a broader look at the properties, the zoning along Harlan between 38th and 44th. Driving that every day, there is a mix there. It is a mix of residential and commercial. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it would be lovely to see the zoning conform to the existing use as well as to the vision that the comprehensive plan has in mind for that. So that's just a comment I wanted to make in addition to the motion.
Okay. Anyone else? Call for vote.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other items?
I don't think so. What's that? Our next meeting is canceled, is that what you're saying? Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Let's clear the voting. Call for a vote.
Motion passed, 7-0.
Thank you.